The PS5 debuted in 2020 as Sony's big bet to win the new generation of consoles. From the outset, there were mixed signals. On the one hand, exceptional demand. There was even a global stock shortage that continued into 2021. But on the other hand, a challenging economic outlook and fierce competition. Today, between 2023 and 2025, voices are emerging that question the success of the PS5. Why are some talking about failure or at least worrying stagnation? Let's look at the data and the gaming community. Global sales figures show that PS5 continues to lead in new units sold, but with declining growth. In fiscal year 2024, Sony reported 18.5 million consoles sold, a decrease of 2.3 million from the previous year. In the last quarter, 2024, the PS5 sold only 2.8 million units versus 4.5 million a year earlier, negative 37.8%. Faced with this, Sony had to cut its forecast. From targeting 25 million consoles for the year, it now estimates around 21 million. Many analysts recognize that growth has peaked, and gradual declines are now expected. In other words, the PS5 has cooled its sales pace after a stronger 2023 driven by promotions and key launches. As of March 2025, Sony had sold around 77.8 million PS5s. Although this is an impressive number, it is 1 million less than the PS4 had sold at this point in its cycle. This suggests that, despite inflation and the rise in the price of the PS5 itself, its performance is not surpassing that of its predecessor. Sony released revised versions, PS5 Slim in 2023 and PS5 Pro in 2024, to revitalize the console, but there has been no giant leap in sales as a result. Analyst William D'Angelo also notes that despite the 2024 record for the PS5 Pro, overall sales remain below the original forecast. It should be remembered that the PS5 suffered from stock shortages during its early years, which undoubtedly slowed early sales and dampened expectations. However, that stage is now behind us. Today, the console is available, so the current sales crisis can no longer be attributed to supply but to actual demand. In summary, the official data shows a clear slowdown, significant year-on-year declines and adjusted targets. Even so, the PS5 remains the best-selling console of the current year, ahead of Xbox and ahead, albeit close, of the Nintendo Switch. Another cause for concern is the range of exclusive games, traditionally a strong point for PlayStation. In 2024 and 2025, Sony's key releases have left a bittersweet taste. Final Fantasy XVI, 2023. Although not 100% exclusive, console only, Square Enix admitted that Final Fantasy XVI did not meet expectations in terms of sales. This highly anticipated RPG received good reviews, but it was announced that it did not live up to previous installments in terms of sales. Marvel's Spider-Man 2, October 2023. It was a critical and commercial success, more than 5 million copies sold in a few days. Sony called it a great success. However, the company itself acknowledged a dip in its internal catalog. In the following quarter, first-party game sales fell to 4.7 million versus 6.6 million the previous year, the lowest level in 18 months. In other words, not even Spider-Man 2 managed to reverse the overall trend for Sony software. By 2024, almost no renowned AAA exclusives had debuted. Neither God of War, Gran Turismo, nor Horizon Forbidden West, Hunters, had appeared. The year's releases, such as Helldivers 2 and the Silent Hill 2 remake, were unexpected and even unrelated to Sony, the former from an external studio. A report by Station highlights that some titles from PlayStation's most important studios were missing, despite modest successes such as Astro's Playroom and Lunar. In other words, there was a lack of major releases from internal studios. Although we don't have any concrete data, Rumors suggest that projects such as Marvel's Wolverine, Insomniac, still have no fixed release date, and Silent Hill 2 Remake changed developers after leaks. Sony's latest state of play showed few surprises. Uncertainty and postponements have been constant in the gaming press. In short, the PS5 generation has not yet had a second wave of blockbusters of its own sufficient to generate massive enthusiasm. Even a success like Spider-Man 2 is up in the air if the rest of the first-party production slows down. Experts are already wondering if Sony's plan is to reach other platforms, which would dilute the value of exclusives. In the field of subscription services, PS Plus, now divided into Essential, Extra, and Premium, has consistently been overshadowed by Xbox Game Pass. The most common criticisms are catalog and releases. Xbox Game Pass offers hundreds of titles from its own and third-party studios, including day-one releases. In contrast, PS Plus never guarantees that Sony releases will be included in its plans. As one analysis points out, Game Pass is still superior in every way, not only because of the quantity and variety of titles, but because it guarantees day-one releases, even from external studios. The author of Infobay himself describes how the services are saturated with continuous releases, but many games come and go from the catalog. This creates anxiety. When they finally announce the withdrawal date of a game, we rush to take advantage of the last few days, causing FOMO, fear of missing out. In practice, users download 1,000 games, but tend to play them little because they don't know how long they will be available. This high supply flow confuses rather than offers. Many fans feel that PS Plus has had ups and downs in offering quality games, especially compared to Xbox Game Studios' exclusives and acquisitions. Even when Sony adds classics, PS1/PS2, via Premium, the service struggles to match the sense of value that Game Pass has offered since its inception. Although there is no official figure, pressure from Game Pass forced Sony to improve PS Plus, for example, by adding PC games to Premium. However, gamers on social media continue to note that the overall service you get with Game Pass is far superior to PS Plus. Comment from a user on Reddit. Ultimately, PS Plus is increasingly seen as an inferior competitor in the subscription war. In short, Sony's strategy to counter Game Pass has been responsive but not decisive. Many still perceive Xbox as winning in terms of convenience and number of games included. For the community, a poor PS Plus, or the feeling of losing out in the service competition, is another source of frustration with the platform. There have been recurring complaints among gamers that fuel the discourse of the PS5's failure, reviewing forums and social media. A widespread complaint is that the PS5 is nothing more than a super PS4. Users point to too many remasters and remakes and lament the lack of truly new exclusive titles. Basically, they feel that many games could have been released on PS4 and that there are no visual or mechanical leaps forward that justify a new console. Several gamers agree that the platform to have this generation would be the PC due to its power and flexibility. It is said that a good PC, or even a decent PS4, can offer better graphics quality and performance than the PS5, added to the advantage of cheaper multi-platform games. One forum user put it this way: "The PS5 is much more expensive than playing on a PC. Not having the option to buy a cheaper key feels wrong." Some are threatening to abandon Sony altogether. Following rumors of multi-platform releases, one player even declared, "I will never buy a PlayStation again. I'll stick with my PC, although it wasn't the main focus." Some believe that the DualSense controller has problems, such as drift in the joysticks. They have also pointed out that PS5 did not introduce any major hardware innovations, apart from the Slim and Pro. Overall, the feeling is that very few games take full advantage of the console's features. Only Astro Bot is mentioned as an example of a title that exploits all the features of the DualSense. As another user says, the PS5 is not living up to its potential because studios are avoiding squeezing its power for PS4 compatibility. Beyond this, the community exploded with every corporate move that diminished exclusivity. A recent example, when it was leaked that Sony is looking to bring PlayStation games to other platforms, the outrage was immediate. Well-known creators even deleted mentions of PlayStation from their social media, interpreting it as a shift in loyalty towards the PC. This confirms that for many fans, one of Sony's key values was precisely its unrepeatable exclusives, and their possible disappearance threatens loyalty. In short, the current gamer perception is one of fatigue, a lack of new content, frustration with market decisions, and an eye on the competition. Although it is not unanimous rejection, many love their PS5, there is a growing chorus of discontent willing to switch platforms. Compared to its rivals, the PS5 still has strengths, but also challenges. Sony dominates sales. By mid-2024, the PS5 had sold 61.7 million units, compared to only 28.3 million for the Xbox X and S. In 2024, the PS5 sold more than twice as many units as the Xbox, 18.6 million versus 4.97 million. However, Xbox has clear strengths. Its ecosystem with Xbox Game Pass and PC integration makes it very attractive. Microsoft, for its part, continues to have the opposite problem. Its console is powerful, but lacks enough exclusive titles, and with Game Pass, many prefer to play without the physical console. Xbox strengths: Game Pass, play from PC or cloud, often high-end hardware. Xbox weakness: with no major new releases from its own studios, console sales have stagnated or fallen, as one analysis points out, perhaps due to high prices and a lack of exclusives. Nintendo is a very different competitor. Current hardware, Switch, already outsells PS5 in total sales. In fact, the Switch could become the best-selling console in history if it keeps up the pace. Switch leads with iconic franchises, Mario, Zelda, Pokémon, and has expanded its base by installing major hits on portable hardware. Nintendo's strengths: unique IP, different gameplay, portable/hybrid, long life cycle. Nintendo's weaknesses: technically inferior hardware, less power, and the end of the generation is fast approaching. There is talk of Switch 2 in 2025. Even so, the PS5 has not been able to take the throne for units sold. The PS5 still has several strengths: a consolidated PlayStation ecosystem in key markets, exclusive games in development, albeit delayed, and a relatively healthy financial position. Sony announced record game revenues in 2024, partly due to the PS5 boom and stock amortization. In gamer culture, PlayStation remains an aspirational brand because of its legacy. However, it is not invincible. Global sales figures and market share show that Sony's hardware no longer leads by as wide a margin as before. Pressure from Xbox with its service model and the ubiquity of PCs, along with Nintendo's strength, have broken the simplistic duopoly of the PS4 and Xbox One era. In short, compared to Xbox and Nintendo, the PS5 maintains its traditional advantages: exclusive events, unified experience, but must reevaluate its weaknesses. Its hardware cycle was late to market and depended on exclusives that have been delayed. Meanwhile, the Switch continues to thrive with its catalog, and Xbox is betting on a games-as-a-service market. If leadership is defined by the number of consoles sold, today Nintendo and Sony are vying for that throne, with Sony far from the historical records of PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 4. But in cultural terms, Sony is still expected to set the tone thanks to its flagship titles. Having analyzed the factors, it is time to reflect. Is the PS5 failing or simply showing signs of maturity/consolidation? On the one hand, there are warning signs: slowing sales, controversy over multi-platform exclusives, and growing public discontent, criticism of A, lack of novelty, negative comparisons with PCs and Xbox. The open letter from analysts pointing out that this could be the weakest PlayStation generation yet is not without merit. Everything points to Sony needing to readjust its strategy, e.g., releasing more powerful exclusives, improving its online service, making the most of the PS5 Pro hardware to maintain user interest. However, calling the PS5 a complete failure would be an exaggeration. Despite relative declines, the console continues to outsell Xbox and remains very popular among its loyal fans. Sony achieved record quarterly sales thanks to the PS5 Slim Pro in 2024, and the PlayStation logo continues to shine brightly in the industry. As a Reuters report cited in El Chapuzas concludes, Microsoft has lost the console war because PS5 sales are double those of Xbox. In addition, Sony's own CEO has stated that this is the most profitable PlayStation generation in history. We have not found the direct quote in the press, but it was mentioned in recent rumors, which puts the word failure into perspective. In short, everything indicates that the PS5 is more at a turning point than a failure. It is not an undisputed success. Original sales forecasts fell short, but it is not collapsing or leaving the market either. Rather, it seems to be a pause. Saturated markets, demanding audiences, and tough competition make the PS5 era one of slow growth or even temporary stagnation. It would be prudent to interpret this as a wake-up call for Sony. It needs to innovate its exclusive catalog, adjust its service strategy, and better communicate its value to avoid erosion of its leadership. In conclusion, it is not fair to speak of total failure, but there are solid reasons for concern. The PS5 has not been the catastrophic disaster of some predictions, but it is far from being an unquestionable success. We will have to wait until 2025 and 2026 to see if Sony responds with major releases and how it readjusts its business model. As a critical observer, one is left with the feeling that the PlayStation 5 is currently in a period of stagnation, with the possibility of revival or decline depending on the company's decisions and the reception of its upcoming titles.